thanks to the National Film Board for the footage in the video, and as well to one of our very own members of the Grande Prairie Boys Choir. I will be looking for a motion to receive the City Council meetings of December 14th, the adoption of the council minutes, please. Councillor Minhas.
Oh, really? Thank you, Jeff, new mayor. I move the council adopt the minutes of the City Council meeting held on Monday, December 14, 2020, as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the adoption of the special City Council meeting. If I could ask somebody to take that. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that Council adopt the minutes of the special City Council meeting held Monday, January 4th, 2021, as presented.
Great, thank you. Comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call that motion. All those in favor? And that too passes unanimously. All right, moving on to the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Minhas.
I move that council adopt the agenda as presented.
Right. Any comments or questions, additions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? And that too is unanimous. Thank you so much. All right, moving to delegations. I see Ms. Karna Gurmscheid is on the call from the Grande Prairie Regional Sport Connection. Welcome, Ms. Gurmscheid.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
You bet.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I believe there's going to be a PowerPoint coming, or I sent it in. Do you guys not put it up?
Mr. Bork, do you have that? Director Bork, sorry.
Oh, yeah, we can share that. Just one moment.
My apologies. I can pull it up certainly right away here. I assume that's why I sent it in. Sorry, this is my first virtual council meeting.
No, we send it in so we're sure that we like the message you're going to tell us. So,
okay, fair enough. Okay, all right. I think you guys are definitely safe on this one.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so once again, thanks so much for the opportunity to be here. We just really wanted an opportunity to touch base with council, give you our perspective, what we've been seeing in the sport world and what we've been doing as an organization since COVID, and what maybe we see as opportunities for the future. So slide 2, please. Whether you love it or hate it, sport and recreation is a piece of the fabric of our communities. It benefits everybody, whether you're a couch potato or you're actually involved in sport. When you consider that in Alberta, between 60 and 70 people are actively engaged with organized sport, it speaks to some powerful numbers for impact. And we know that unequivocally it reduces healthcare costs, social costs, increases a sense of belonging in a community, as well as a significant economic generator, which those of you that own businesses can understand acutely. Slide 3, please. So some of the impacts you guys are obviously aware of. The city has done an excellent job in working with our organizations, you know, waiving fees that they would normally have, some ongoing fees, and really helping support our organizations. I just want to recognize that there are a lot of organizations as well that are still don't have maybe landlords that are as gracious as you guys. One of the impacts is reduction in membership. So this is due for different things. Fear of getting sick, so less engagement, changing priorities. We're seeing very big behavior changes in people that were very busy with sport before. Decreased allowance due to safety protocols. So even if a sport organization does open their doors to membership, these guidelines prevent them from filling the spots like they could do prior to COVID guidelines. Decrease in revenue opportunities, loss in casino money, loss in sponsorship, loss opportunity to fundraisers, decrease in membership. Decrease in volunteers. Engagement has been broken between volunteers and some of our organizations. A volunteer generally does their volunteering on the side of their desk. When things become a little more challenging, a little more risky, you're bound to lose some volunteers. We also see some volunteer loss through parents going, because parents volunteer when their kids are engaged. If their kids aren't engaged any longer, if they don't feel safe putting their kids in, you know, we lose that parent volunteer, which is not good for the organization. Perceived risk. Volunteers, if you're running an organization, you're doing it on the side of the desk, and all of a sudden you have to deal with, you know, the potential of being charged with something, not really understanding fully what you need to do with the protocols, maybe not really understanding the protocols and not having time to interpret all the guidelines that keep changing frequently. You lose the volunteers there as well. Ongoing increased costs, so rent, mortgage, maintenance, utilities, insurance, these costs have not ended for a lot of our organizations. And a lot of our organizations haven't been able to have access to any kind of granting or subsidization through the government as well. There's also the increased cost of membership. So even when we do open up sport, they have less members. So then the onus goes on to that membership cost for them to be able to open their doors and cover their other costs, which undoubtedly increases that gap between people and families that can pay for organized sport and those that cannot pay for organized sports, which is going to be a problem that we identify in the near future. So fear of insolvency. In April and May, the national survey results suggested that 71% will experience hardship beyond 3 months, and we're 9 months in, maybe more than 9 months in now. So we recognize that we have lost some organizations, and some organizations are still hanging on and doing what they can to survive. Decrease in physical activity has been astronomical. And an unintended side effect, of course, of the physical activity levels. Only 2.8% of 5 to 17-year-olds are meeting the 24-hour movement guidelines now, according to Participation, which is a very dismal number, which leads to other things. There's studies now being done for anxiety among youth, which is up 68%, depression, 65% in youth, communicating, so these are youth surveys, they're communicating symptoms that identify with anxiety or depression. One of the highlights of COVID is the increased demand in outdoor activities. In the summertime, you guys might recall that you couldn't find a bike. Our paths were full. Now we're into cross-country skis. You can't buy cross-country shoes. When you do, they're astronomical. Snowshoes are a hard item and sought-out item to get to now. All of our rinks, you know, whether it's a benefit right now, are being used much more than they've ever been used in the past. I know that I have Crystal Lake behind me here, and we've got 6 rinks on that lake alone. So it's actually a significant change and very positive. Sorry, did somebody try to say something to me?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right, slide 4. So back in March, when our first lockdown was put into place, it was a big shock to the sport community. We started seeing like large events, the Arctic Winter Games being canceled. Then we started seeing seasons and games being postponed, and then cancellations, and then it became a big tsunami of events being canceled all around us. It was shocking for everybody in the sport community, and it was shocking for everybody outside the sport community. First thing we did as an organization was to offer online promotions for sport organizations that were able to pivot. So some organizations very quickly started offering their services online, and were able to maintain their memberships through that. So we played a role in the promotion. Online webinars became a sought-out information source for athletes and coaches as well. We were promoting webinars around dealing with grief and loss, mental health and the athlete, who should be refunded, legalities around online training, questions about hosting AGMs, and all sorts of information. People were just hungry for information, trying to figure out their way through the new normal. So we also started to host some sport community calls, and these calls were just calls that are open once a week to anybody that wanted to jump in on the call. And we had as little as 1 person to as many as 15 people engage in those calls. And those calls were used quite often to for information sharing. So some organizations were significantly out in front than other organizations, but people, especially volunteers, wanted to jump online, know exactly what everybody else was doing. We had 3 times, we had a consultant, Marvin Dobish, who is with the Sport, Physical Activity and Recreation arm of the provincial government, jump online just to help out questions with us up here in the north and help us along. And he's been a great resource for us. Which leads me to the return to play guidelines. So the return to play guidelines started back in the summer, and we've been working with organizations on return to play guidelines summer, fall, and we continued into the winter. We've supported more than 20 organizations plus facilities, mainly the ones run by ag societies, to help them walk through the process. There was mass confusion around the return to play. The guidelines were all up for interpretation. They didn't have very strong language. Sometimes the governing bodies, the governing sport bodies, had slightly different protocols. So it was a lot for our volunteers to take in and quite intimidating. So we wanted to relieve them of that. And what we did is we would not just give them their protocols, not just do the guidelines, but we would spend an hour with each organization, help answer those questions, and walk through what it looks like when you have your registration set up, what kind of waivers we're looking for, what do you need to do, contacting your insurance provider, walking into the facility, playing to leaving the facility, and everything in between that. So I anticipate when things open up, there's going to be a new set of guidelines. They're likely going to be similar, but of course there's going to be some major tweaks. They're always changing just slightly. So we try to keep communication up with the organizations as we move through this. Speaking of communication, it's one of the most important things for our sport organizations right now to be doing with their memberships. Studies are showing that people are willing to re-engage and participate at a higher rate if they feel the organization has clear measures in place for their children to participate. So this kind of service and ongoing service is going to be important moving forward. Advocacy. Advocacy work has taken a new look for us in the Sport Connection. Lee and myself sit on a Leadership of Sport in Alberta committee. It's a committee made up of several sport leaders throughout the province. What they're doing is they're gathering up key messaging to help the sport community throughout the province advocate to the provincial government so that sport can be, or to encourage them to make sure that sport be part of the COVID recovery plan. There's so much opportunity for impact through sport, and so we just feel that it's important for us to be part of this and to be advocating to our elected officials up north. So we've met with Minister here a couple times. Lee and I met with MP Chris Workington, MLA Tracy Allard, MLA Dan Williams, and we had to postpone our meetings with Minister Tays and MLA Todd Lowen just because of this last shutdown. But we will continue our advocacy efforts. In our advocacy efforts, we're asking for the provincial government to add investment into community recreation facilities to address deficiencies and upgrades. That's long been needed anyway. It's a shovel-ready project that creates jobs. We're asking that an aggressive event hosting strategy be established. In Alberta, sport tourism is a billion-dollar industry. If we want to talk about getting the economy going, sports should be part of that conversation. That sport and recreation accessibility support program be created, and that a sport and recreation tax incentive program be provided. We're very concerned about the gap between the people that will be able to participate and those that will not be able to participate in sport. And a tax incentive would allow more families to engage. Slide 4, please. So what does this mean, and some of the things that we can do in the future? I know that sport will survive, and sport is just adapting, and we're seeing it every day. People are still anxious to get out. There's really no worry about sport really happening. The concern, or what I recognize to be the largest priority, is making sure that people still have access to opportunities in sport. So policies, sport is not always done As we all know, sport can be either negative or positive, and I think that there's a role for municipalities to play for positive sport experience, especially in our public facilities like our fields and our rinks. Exercising the power of the permit to create local standards would be amazing. You know, local standards, even in simple ways that we're running organizations, you know, like criminal record checks, keeping our children safe, or a local level of respect in sport, but also coaching, so that coaches are coaching at the appropriate development level of participation. The Sandlot experience is that drop-in, you know, experience. We have a huge gap in the region in recreation sport. I get calls where people say, you know what, my daughter got cut off, she got cut from a team. She just wants to play recreationally. Is there any opportunities to do that? And, you know, we do have very limited opportunities for drop-ins, but drop-ins aren't always the only answer. When I'm talking about Sandlot, I'm really talking about more of a recreational opportunity where people show up, everybody gets split, and they have access to equipment, and they have an opportunity to play games. So at very accessible and very low cost. Prioritizing a sport tourism strategy. The Sport Connection was actually, for those of you that haven't been around since the beginning of the Sport Connection, our genesis came from the sport tourism strategy through the city. I recommend that we take another look at that tourism strategy and figure out ways how we can collaborate with and make partners in around with, whether it's our regional DMFs, our schools, to create opportunities to bid on not only bid on new events, but also making up our own events. Down in Lethbridge, my colleagues, they just made up a regional lacrosse tournament. And every year, without fail, it brings in over $300,000 a year. I think because we are so regional, we just have so many opportunities with our beautiful facilities to create a really strong strategy that can bring people to our region. And that's about it. I know I spoke a bit. I hope some of you do have some questions, and certainly if you want any further information about what's going on out there, I'm always happy to send information.
Great. Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Grimscheid. I'll look to Council to see if there's any questions. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton, and thanks for the presentation, Karna. Really appreciate it. I have a couple questions. I guess I can ask them both in one. So the first question I have is, what do you feel are the opportunities that can present themselves with our new regional, our new rec center that is going up in the Smith subdivision in regards to helping to offset the issues of drop-in centers and availability to sports for kids? So that's my first question. And my second question is, can you just describe to me a bit more in detail what the Grande Prairie Sport Connection's involvement is with our regional recreation master or regional recreation committee?
Sure. Yeah, two big questions. Thank you so much, Councillor Thiessen. I do have big dreams for the new recreation center. Like I say, there is a gap for recreation opportunities, so spontaneous play, like intramural type play, but also family opportunities. And I think that the gap is going to be significantly more. So I think it's really important as a municipal facility to recognize that in the strategy for its operation. So drop-in play is limited. So when we think about the field house at Eastlink Center, drop-in is great, but you know, I wouldn't take my son to a drop-in because I don't want to there's good players there, right? The good players go to the good baskets, right? When we're not able to go outside. Certainly we have lots of facility outside, but during the winter, right? But let's say what I would do is if there was an intramural, a basketball league, right? And I just had to drop in, I paid for the membership fee to drop my kid in, sign up, right? For 1 hour, he goes in, they just go 1, 2, 1, 2, split the kids up in certain age groups and allow them to have that opportunity to play, right? So engaging like in different levels of sport development and with a good experience, obviously with loose supervision, right? Some good mentors on site and things like that. So I also would like to see if we build new facilities and we bring in new new opportunities for sport groups in the facilities, that when we engage in these user group contracts, we consider things like level of training, right? Coaching experience, safety policies, bylaws, things like that, right? Have some sort of quality sport level that we can manage so that we can make sure that it's a positive experience for the people that are engaging in sport there. So that's one of my things for that center. And I'll move on to the Master Recreation Plan. The Master Recreation Plan, the Sport Connection role in that is we sit on that committee meeting. And what we've done in the past is we've helped with implementation of it. So pieces of implementation of it. So right now, like when you're rolling out or talking about new facilities coming in and you want to bring in, like right now we've got the soccer group, right? And we've got the high performance group as well coming in. Well, a role for the Sport Connection is to be, you know, making sure that they have their answers, they have their T's crossed and their I's dotted, but they're communicating with each other as well. So that role becomes talking to the sport groups and maybe connecting with the sport groups. So the coordinator of that organization is not they're the coordinator of bringing this region together. So like the counselors together, right? She's the coordinator of activating a certain part of the implementation plan, which would engage the Sport Connection or one out of the 7 municipalities, things like that. So we each have our role to play in all of those. And when you go through the recommendations of the master plan, municipalities have their roles, the sport councils have their roles, and the coordinator's role is different in that it's the technical part of it. We're the workers, right? And we're the cheaper workers. So if we have an initiative that we want to roll out through that, you would engage an organization like the Sport Connection because it's just fiscally responsible. You say, well, you know what? We're going to do this initiative for the region. Can you bring all these people together and do that? So we would do that. She would coordinate the meetings and all that around it. So that's does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah, no, I got it all. Like sort of your involvement there with them. Yes.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much for your answers and all the details that you provided. Really appreciate it.
Any other questions? Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Thanks for coming in, Karna. I always appreciate your giving us an update and your passion for sports. So can you just give me an idea, and I know it's maybe early, but are you having preliminary numbers of what enrollments could look like coming out of COVID for sports? Like, you know, what sort of a decline do you think we're going to see in some of our major sports? Or is it just too early to say?
No, we're predicting around 25%. So Wade, Councillor Platt, I would like to, though, explain that 25% decrease in sport participation, but there's also a behavior change. So some of the behavior change is that parents that have overscheduled their kids and have them running around to 2 or 3 different sports, we're seeing more and more prioritized to just one sport, right? And that's because they are limited in their cohorts and things currently right now. We do anticipate that some of them, and they have communicated through surveys that some of them are happy with the less pressures and they can't see themselves going back. So that's going to be one of the reasons why we'll see a decrease. But also there's going to be new sport discovered as well. So there's going to be different behaviors with those kids where some kids lose engagement with, let's say, hockey, and they move to disc golf. So we're going to see movement around. The decrease that I'm worried about is the decrease in people's accessibility to sports. So that's why it's really important for us to make sure that people know that we have disc golf available, we have pickleball available, because there will be a lot of families that are, quite frankly, priced out of sport after COVID, more so than they were before.
Okay. And I appreciate you making those comments. Are you seeing any other sports? I mean, the city, I think, is well positioned with the 2 sports that you mentioned might be getting some extra activity, but is there any other outdoor recreation sports that you see a gap we might have coming if this switch this pivot continues to happen?
A specific sport gap? Or
maybe more of the outdoor space, because it seems like that's where a lot of sports is headed. Or do you see any gaps
I agree. That's a great question. And obviously, we've seen an uptake in Wapiti Nordic, and Nighthawk has been constantly selling out all their ski lessons. But actively creating things and opportunities for outside is absolutely something that we should be recognizing. Any sport. I'm not seeing any new sport. I'm not seeing, we just got pickleball sport, so we're well positioned for that. We've got beautiful outdoor basketball courts, so we're well positioned for that. Maybe we want to look at a strategy, though, to make sure that they're utilized at their fullest, and we can help decrease that gap until the economy has come back and people are in a better place again.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, and I'd love to see you come back again when we get out of COVID, just to give us another update if that was possible. So I really appreciate your roundedness of the entire sports community. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Plotz. Any other questions? I don't see anyone jumping, so I might jump in here for a minute. Ms. Grimscheid, could you expand a bit on what you think the opportunities are for the city to support sport organizations coming out of COVID? You mentioned tax incentives, different things like that. Can you just sort of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, tax incentives, that was definitely for the province, but you know, right now, you know, looking at what we do have and what we can do. So I believe what we do have is great, but it's not really like the recreation access program. We do have, but it's not really greatly utilized, right? So maybe we can consider re-looking at that and engaging it a little bit differently, right? So not so much maybe a person applies, but maybe that money could be to create a programming that's promoted as low cost to get people into that facility, right? So just rethinking what we currently have would be very helpful, I think, and it wouldn't create we wouldn't be spending any new money. Also with what you're doing with our organizations has been, I think, really commendable, and, you know, giving them relief in their costs. But how about considering, you know, prime time, and it doesn't matter, I know we talk a lot about arenas, but it doesn't matter what facility, but prime time for low cost, inclusive sport opportunities, right? And that might be led by one of your recreators, right? And it would be just a kind of an open style thing, but allocating time for that so that it could be like a feeder system into the other system, which will continually help our organizations. The surveys are also saying that our sport organizations want help with promotions. So I would recommend if one of our organizations is a user group within one of your facilities, maybe there's a partnership there that you can help them fill their numbers as well, right? So without like putting out any money, I think there are opportunities that we can do to help close that gap or mitigate the gap.
Great, thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I thank you for your time today, and as I think you recall, we deal with all delegation business at the end of the meeting, so you're more than happy to stay on, and I just ask you to turn off your camera. Otherwise, someone from administration will follow up if there's any direction that comes out of your presentation.
Awesome. Thanks for the opportunity. Take care. Have a great night, everybody. I'm going to go pick up my kid from school.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, moving under reports. Next, we have item 7.1, bylaw C 1426, the face covering mask bylaw, and this is indicated as a verbal decision, verbal discussion rather. I'm not sure who from administration, if anyone. Oh, Councillor Blackburn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm not sure if administration had anything to say about this, but I do want to start off the conversation by making a motion that we can kick around. So I would move that Council direct administration to bring forward an amendment to bylaw C 1426, removing paragraph 13, which refers to the expiry of the bylaw. And speaking to the motion, when the bylaw first went into force in early September, the city and the county had a combined 18 active cases. When the terms of the bylaw were triggered on the 26th of October, the city had 91 active cases and 2 deaths. And combined with the county's numbers, there were 106 active cases in the region. At the end of last week, there was a combined 189 active cases and 11 deaths. Overall, the county and the city have seen 1,155 cases since the pandemic was declared. So it's quite obvious that the virus has invaded the region and continues to infect our neighbors and our friends and our loved ones. Information from provincial and federal experts make it clear that the pandemic will continue to grow in the short term and will be a continued threat for many months after vaccines start to be distributed to the general public. Masks alone, it seems, by looking at these numbers, won't stop the virus from spreading. However, they do make a difference, and they make it possible for us to run necessary errands with a reduced threat of infection. So having an expiry date in the bylaw to me is redundant, since its terms are only in effect under prescribed conditions. Having to review an expiry date from time to time is unnecessary and really seems to be a form of red tape. At some time in the not too distant future, I would hope that we'll be able to repeal the bylaw. In the meantime, I'd appreciate my fellow councillors' indulgence in supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. Comments or questions from Council? Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I've got a question probably for our city clerk, but I just don't understand what happens with the bylaw if Section 13 is left as is and the bylaw, so that the bylaw goes out of effect on January 31st. What happens on February 1st in terms of, I understand that on February 1st, masks would no longer be mandated, at least by the city. They'd probably still be likely mandated by the province because we can't override provincial legislation. But in terms of this bylaw itself, if we allowed it to expire and then at a later date, we wanted to bring a bylaw requiring masks into effect again, if this bylaw had already expired, would we need to pass an all new bylaw? Or can we just change Section 13 to a different expiry date even after this bylaw has already expired?
Ms. Karaszewski.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. In response to Councillor Bressie's question, the bylaw, paragraph 13 of the current bylaw puts the bylaw into a state of non-effect or ineffectiveness after January 31. The bylaw itself is still a live bylaw. It is not a repealed bylaw, so it does stay on the books. And in the future, if this council so chooses to make this bylaw effective, an amendment would need to be brought forward to affect the changes required to paragraph 13 to re-affect the bylaw.
Great, thank you, I appreciate it. I'll wait to save my peace of mind to see if anybody else has questions, so I'm good for now. Thank you, Mayor Clayton.
Other questions or comments from council? I don't see anybody moving.
Mayor Clayton, I don't know if it rose up on your screen, but I guess I have a question.
Go ahead, Councillor Plott.
Thank you. I'm just trying to understand the process on this to Councillor Blackburn's motion. So, in effect, if we made a motion today with a date or no motion at all, I'm just trying to understand, I guess from the community's perspective, I wouldn't be able to support this motion without a date. To be honest, I think there needs to be a date. I wouldn't support it without that, but I also want to try to understand from administration, what's the best process to go forward if we made an amendment with another date that we have this conversation. My fear is that it's going to be very hard to take this off if we don't put a date on it and it brings a topical point. And so that's my feeling on it anyways, but I'm just asking administration, would it be better to amend a date and leave the policy in place, or just have this come up where we're trying to repeal a bylaw at some point? It might be kind of similar to Councillor Press's question, but I'm just trying to...
It's necessary for a council to give an amendment 3 readings, and without reading, being without having the bylaw in front of this council to effectively read it, that can't happen. So there's no passing of a bylaw today. There's only work to be done to bring something forward for this council to consider passing at the next council meeting. Date would be a different amendment. So this amendment that Councillor Blackburn is asking us to prepare would be to delete paragraph 13 in its entirety and allow the bylaw to just be in effect upon the date of passing. But again, that's one option. I think what Councillor Palat is asking is to not delete paragraph 13, but move the date, which would be a separate amendment.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm asking. I just want to get clarification on. So thank you for that, Ms. Karbaczewski.
If I can just jump into the question, Ms. Karbaczewski. So if I understand the intent of Councillor Blackburn, I'm curious if nothing were to come out of today's meeting in direction, in regards to direction, can you tell me what would happen? I understand it would probably show up in the next committee meeting, and then possibly at that point it would potentially go to a next council meeting, but can you just sort of walk me through what would happen if no direction came out of today's meeting?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. At this point, if council chose not to take any action moving forward, with the understanding that this bylaw will expire on January 31st, administration would not take any action. It would just, it would be understood that council just would choose not to take any action at this time. Administration then would wait for direction from council to bring something forward in the future for this council to consider.
I thought, though, that during the discussion of this bylaw that there was discussion that this would come back for discussion upon expiry.
Thank you, Mayor. So administration had prepared a report to go through committee, specifically with a recommendation to seek direction from council. So at this point, with Councillor Black.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead, sorry.
It could, yes. It could go to committee and have committee have this very same conversation with the intent that at the end of this, council still has to decide what to do.
So just to confirm, there's no direction today. Administration would put it on the next committee meeting, and then if there was direction out of that standing committee meeting, it would go to the next council meeting.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Minhas.
Thank you. I got the answer. I thought we can extend the date as it is, but we can't do anything till we go to the committee, so I'm okay.
No, Councillor Minhas, that's not entirely true. If there is direction, it will have to receive 3 readings, but you could direct administration to put it onto the next council meeting for decision.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, you know, if we can do it and extend the date, not taking the paragraph off. But if you need, I can put them.
Well, no, Councillor Blackburn has.
I can amend the motion with Clyde. He put it into not amend this one, but do the next meeting. Can I do that?
So right now, Councillor Blackburn has a motion on the floor, and if Ms. Karbaczewski, if you want to read that motion, that'd be great.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Moved by Councillor Blackburn, Council direct administration to bring forward an amendment to bylaw C-1426, being the face covering mask bylaw, to remove paragraph 13.
Okay, that's good enough. I don't have to change anything.
All right, Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. And thanks for the motion, Clyde. Unfortunately, I'm in the same boat as Councillor Palat, where I can't accept it by taking a date off completely. I was actually quite relieved when the province issued their own face mask mandates, because they have the health professionals and right up beside them, giving them the advice that we just don't have. I understand that this is a big thing, but I think that if we're going to move a date, we can move a date. I just don't want to make it no date, and we're face masking potentially for a very, very long time. The other thing I just really wanted to express, because I know that you brought up some stats, but we have a correspondence coming in earlier that we're probably just going to receive for information. For me, I'm very disappointed by the lack of information that was actually presented. 2 out of 3 of the links that were provided by Alberta Health Services go to page not found. So, and the other one is already on my desktop, which is the COVID geospatial stats and everything you need to know about COVID on the Alberta site. So at least that link worked. But I was really disappointed. I was excited to hear that they're going to be opening up more acute care beds and ICU beds, but it doesn't say anything about the regional context of Grande Prairie, like how many extra in the region and in the North Zone are we actually going to get. So there is a lack of information that's coming forward to us in order for us to make these decisions. And without the medical expertise backing us, and right now they back us, as Councillor Bressie said earlier, we could lift ours, but the province will still have theirs and we'll still be face masking. So as long as we're in this state of emergency with these extra measures, I'm okay with that, because the province is the one calling the shots on this in their state of emergency, with the provincial health officials right by their side, and we just don't have that. So yeah, I'm just going to go with the guidance, and if we need to extend it, that's great, but I can't take a date off. Thanks.
Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, I'm sorry, Councillor Blackburn, I don't think I can support this amendment either. And for me, I do think that masks should still have a role in our response. I'd highlight that the province is mandating them right now, and they've got a more stringent mandate than we have. And honestly, now that the province is standing up and doing the right thing and taking responsibility for its portfolio, I do kind of struggle whether or not I want us to have an active bylaw or not, even while I do think that masks are a prudent thing right now, given what I understand is happening with our provincial healthcare. But that being said, for me, I don't understand the science of vaccines enough right now to take the state right off of it. And I don't know if anybody understands the science of vaccines and which vaccines are going to be approved and how long they're effective for and how effective they are. In terms of, I could see us getting to a place in November where maybe 80% of Grande Prairie is vaccinated and there's a high rate of effectiveness with vaccine, and all of our folks working in healthcare and all of our folks in long-term care homes and all of our vulnerable residents are vaccinated. And then maybe 100 cases in the city of Grande Prairie doesn't present significant danger to people. Or maybe when we get to October, November, and there is wide vaccination, we realize they're not as effective as we hoped, and 100+ cases is a significant risk. I just don't understand where the science is going to be in October or November as vaccinations become widespread. And for that reason, I think there should still be an expiry date on this bylaw. Probably not a quarterly one like we have right now. I think it would be prudent to put an expiry date past when we expect vaccines to be available to everybody who wants them. But I think taking out the sunset clause altogether isn't something that I'm prepared to support at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Bressie. Any further comments or questions on the motion? Seeing no one move. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I apologize. Councillor Blackburn, would you like to close
if I may?
Perfect, you bet. My apologies.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Bressie, for making comments about the science. A couple of comments about that. Number one, when we did this in early September, we bemoaned the fact that we didn't have the expertise to deal with this properly, and that it should probably be something that the province was dealing with. However, despite that, we did take it into our own hands to set up a policy, and we, at the same time, sorry, not a policy, a bylaw, and we did at the same time take science into our own hands by deciding on what the right number should be. We have no idea whether 100 is the right number, one way or the other. But we had the audacity to make that decision, and we put it in place. My personal belief is that the number is too high, but I'm not here to argue that one right now. The other thing that I want to point out is that the terms of the bylaw mean that if our numbers go below 100, that the terms of the bylaw will no longer be in effect until they go above 100 again. That to me is as effective as an expiry. So I think that having an expiry in there as well as that provision is simply redundant. And I don't think that it's necessary. At a time when we know that the threat of the virus has passed, then there's nothing wrong with us looking through our bylaw review and repealing the policy, repealing the bylaw. I think that can be done very simply. In the meantime, if there is no expiry date on the bylaw, it will have no effect on whether or not the bylaw is going to cause any problem for anybody or be of any use to anybody. That limit of 100 does the trick. So I'm suggesting that we don't need to have the redundancy, and we don't need to have the red tape. The bylaw will either be in effect or not based on its own contents, and at some time we can repeal it. So I'll leave it at that, Mayor Clayton. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'll call the motion. All in favor of Councillor Blackburn's motion? That I see Councillor Blackburn and Councillor Friesen. And opposed? Councillor O'Toole, Mayor Clayton, Councillor Bressie, Councillor Minhas, Councillor Plott, and Councillor Thiessen. Thank you for that. I don't see anyone else moving. There we go. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd move that council direct administration to bring bylaw amendments to our next council meeting necessary to change the sunset clause to November 30th, 2021. And just speaks to this, I think we should be bumping the sunset clause out potentially. Well, actually, I don't even know if we should. Probably what I'll be suggesting next meeting is we give first reading to that and then postpone until the province decides what they're doing with their mask mandate, because I don't see why we need this when the province has their mask mandate on. But regardless, I do think that we should have a debate with potential 3 readings coming to a future council meeting. November 30th seems like a prudent date to me. I'll argue why I think November 30th is a prudent date next council meeting. Right now, I don't think it's important to talk about the specific date. I think it would be easy enough to amend that next council meeting if we decide to. So I'd encourage council to support this motion so that we can have a full discussion about this at our next council meeting with the legislative tools ready to go if we choose to use them.
All right, comments or questions on the motion? I don't see, oh, there we go, Councillor Thiessen.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Thank you for the motion, Councillor Bressie. Much like the previous motion, I can't accept this. It's a bit of a longer time horizon. I understand you'll probably get through the summer and cold and flu season, let the next council decide and see where we are close to a year away from here. But it's just too close. One thing that I can't, or it's just too far away. One thing that I'm hopeful of is that when the spring and summer comes out and the vaccine rollout is there and people who wish to get their shot has gotten their shot, that we're not going to see the infection rates that we still have. And as you stated earlier, I'm perfectly happy with the province making their mask mandate. And if they're going to make the mask mandates, then I think that's their role, that's their prerogative, and that's part of what falls under their portfolio as the provincial government. So for me, that time horizon is way too long and way too far off. And again, our bylaw is pretty much at the mercy of the province's bylaw right now on their mask mandate. So since we're in the secondary position, I just leave it up to the people who have the most professional medical expertise around them. So I can't support this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thiessen. All right, I will give Councillor Bressie an opportunity to close.
Thank you. I just, if you're in a position where you think there should be a sunset clause of some sort, but you think November 30th is maybe the wrong one, then I'd encourage you to support this motion and offer an amendment to the bylaw when it next comes to council. Like I said, I didn't make arguments for why I thought November 30th. I'll save that for next council meeting. Really, this is just setting us up so we can have a full discussion and the tools necessary to make whatever decision we want to make the next council meeting. So very open to hearing arguments, any potential amendments that come in next council meeting, but I hope this comes to the next council meeting.
So I will ask Councillor Bressy, is that your close? Because I do have comments if that's not your close, but if that's your close, I'll leave it.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was my close, but I don't need to say any more, and I'm happy to have other people kick in if they want.
Fair enough. Okay, so that being the close, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? I see Councillor Friesen, Councillor Blackburn, and Councillor Bressy. And opposed? Councillor Plott, Councillor Minhas, Councillor Thiessen, Councillor O'Toole, and Mayor Clayton. That motion is defeated. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would just like to make a comment, if I may. What we've done here so far is we've failed to direct administration to bring back any amendments. But I do hope that administration is going to bring this bylaw to the next committee meeting so that further discussion and direction can be decided. I appreciate the fact that we've had to debate this in order to give direction to administration. But some of the debate that we heard today could have been saved for that committee meeting or for a subsequent council meeting. So I would just express a hope that that the committee will indeed have the opportunity to discuss this before the end of the month.
All right. I don't think that's a motion. That's just an observation. So I don't see any more business arising from this. All right, we will move on. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Thiessen, I missed you. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor Clayton. Actually, I thought Councillor Blackburn was going to make a motion in there, and I do think that this is something that we should be discussing. We're getting close to our current sunset clause, and we could just let that expire. And you know, but I don't think that should go without a good, hearty round of debate and a casual conversation where only a few members of council have spoken up. So I'm going to make a motion as per Councillor Blackburn to bring the mandatory face covering bylaw to the next appropriate standing committee for review.
All right, that motion is in order. Comments or questions on the motion? Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, I will support that motion. I think that we do need to have a little bit of an in-depth conversation with some insight from administration, so I'll support that for sure.
So I have a question for Councillor Thiessen. Your hope is that the bylaw comes back for discussion. Is it specifically in regards to clause 13 or the entire bylaw?
Well, I think what we're talking about right now is clause 13. And it could mean that once we've had a discussion at committee, it could go nowhere from that point. I imagine all members of council will be there. I'm also looking at this as another opportunity or a potential opportunity for us to get a member of Alberta Health Services, Alberta North Zone in front of council to answer certain questions that I don't feel are being answered right now. In order for us to make decisions in regards to COVID-19 and its impact on our community and our region, we can't just be accepting of these letters that say one thing and show no representation in other regards. So I'm looking at it twofold. One, yeah, we should discuss it. We should hear what the community has to say with enough notice, and council should have a robust discussion whether we want it to expire January 31st or create another date. But it also gives us another opportunity to have Alberta Health Services come before our committee and explain to us the importance of this face mask based off of the data that they have and they share with the province.
And so to that, I think that if the intent is, you know, to speak specifically about a clause, I guess my concern would be is, I don't think your intent is to open the bylaw and revisit the whole process. So I'm wondering, maybe a question for administration, and I don't know if it's Director Manuel or who wants to take this, but maybe, is the motion good as is, or would you prefer it more specific to an item of the bylaw?
Mayor Clayton, certainly protective and social services, if that's where we want to discuss this. I certainly believe narrowing the scope of it, as opposed to it being a debate about the merits of the entire bylaw, could be helpful, but you know, certainly that's council's prerogative.
Yeah, thank you for that, Director Manuel. And if I may speak, Councillor Clayton, I'm not expecting a lot. Bring it back for review. It'll show up in our agenda package. We can read it over. If there's any clauses that we don't like, council can bring that up, or committee members can bring that up. I think what we're really looking at is this. I don't want administration to pull out a full report. Just request for direction. What does council want to do as we approach this date?
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I guess I'm a little, I mean, fair enough, we'll bring this committee. We already defeated a motion to bring it to council, which, if I understand this, if it comes to committee, it inevitably has to come to council to have a decision anyway. So I'm not sure. I guess we're just having this come to committee, and then 2 weeks later it's coming to council to hopefully have more time to get information from HS or other things. Is that the intent? I'm hoping. I'm just confused. If we're going to defeat why it's coming to council, why even go to committee? Because it inevitably has to come to council, I'm understanding anyway. So I'm a little torn on that motion, to be honest, because I feel like we just defeated this exact thing by saying it's not coming to council. So yeah, I'm a little torn on that, where I'm going to go with this one.
Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Just a little bit of clarification. The reason that we have this on the agenda today is because of a request I made to the city clerk. I'm not going to be at the next committee or council meetings. I wanted an opportunity to express my opinion and make an effort to make a change. But I understand that if we hadn't started up this little storm, it likely would have been a recommendation of administration to have it at the next committee meeting anyway, because of the impending expiry. So having it go to committee for a discussion regarding that and then bringing it to the next council meeting is only a normal course of action, in my opinion. And so I hope that that the motion will pass. Thanks.
Director Manuel.
Yeah, I apologize. I'll just clarify at committee what administration certainly can do is, as the city clerk indicated, we can speak about the impending process of what would occur at the end of the month. And from my perspective, I can certainly provide an overview of the current COVID situation from a local context with the information that is available from Alberta Health Services at that particular time. So we'll at least have the most relevant information for the date. So I will provide that.
Thank you.
Great. Seeing no further comments or questions to Councillor Thiessen's motion, I will call the motion. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. All right, seeing no other business on that item, I suggest we move on to item 8.4. No, sorry, I'm ahead of myself here.
8.1.
That was wishful thinking, I think. Item 8.1, Community Service Committee meeting of Tuesday, January 5th. And Community Services, sorry, I've got too many tabs open here. Councillor Blackburn. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to move that council adopt the minutes of the Community Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, January 5th, 2021 as presented.
Great. Comments, questions on that? Call the motion. All those in favor? Councillor Minhas, are you still with us? If not, all right. I see Councillor O'Toole, Councillor Bressie, Councillor Plott, Councillor Friesen, Councillor Blackburn, and Councillor Thiessen, and Councillor Minhas. That is unanimous. Thank you. And I'll leave that with you, Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you. Just a couple of things to report from the meeting. In Director Miller's presentation to us, he mentioned that due to the provincial restrictions, the Coca-Cola Centre and Eastlink Centre closed on December 13th. Hat Trick Grill, the Collision Reporting Centre, La Valley Physiotherapy, and Jim Nick's Kinder Gym have remained operational as permitted. Administration has processed a bulk freeze to active memberships and scheduled payments so that people will not lose out just because of the fact that they have no access to the facilities. Due to provincial restrictions, Revolution Place and Montrose Cultural Centre are closed to the general public. The Grande Prairie Public Library continues their curbside and online services, and Dave Bar Community Centre remains open for the operation of the Stepping Stones daycare. Pleased to report that the skating oval at the Montrose Cultural Centre is completed and open for public use. The museum recently received recognized museum status. This is a standards-based accreditation program for museums in Alberta, so that's good news for us here in Grande Prairie. I'm also pleased to note that the Activity Reception Center project is going to go ahead with the use of a number of local subcontractors on the project. So that should be of benefit to some of our local workers. And that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no questions, I will move on to item 8.2, the Protective and Social Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, January 5th. And that is Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I just make a motion that Council receive the minutes from the Protective and Social Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, January 5th, 9 o'clock as presented.
Great. Call the motion. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Any highlights or anything you wanted to update Council on, Councillor?
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. It was a pretty brief agenda, but we did have a couple things I did want to point out. The deadline to submit nominations for the Passion of Hearts event is January 22nd, so there's still a little bit of time for people to submit for that. It's an annual event with the FCC department, so hopefully we can get more of that. And the Opioid Task Force meetings will continue to commence again this month, and they'll be held quarterly moving forward. So that's the update. Great.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, we're going to move on to item 8.3.1. The advocacy, no, I apologize. We're going to move on to the Corporate Services Committee meeting minutes of January 5th. Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton, and I'll move the Council adopt the minutes of the Cooperative Service Committee meeting held on Tuesday, January 5th, 2021 as presented.
Great, thank you. Seeing no questions on that motion, I'll call that. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Minhas, and we'll move on to 8.3.1, the advocacy framework.
I move the Council adopt the advocacy framework as presented, which is, I think, the administration will bring in the next couple of weeks to our advocacy program. I think, Shane, if you can help us there.
Director Bork, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah.
We can't hear you, sorry, Director Bork.
Sorry, got technical issues myself here today. No, administration is just looking for approval of the framework. We'll look for an opportunity in the next few weeks to have a discussion with Council on specific priorities.
Great. Is that good, Councillor Minhas?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I'll call that motion. All those in favor? The motion is unanimous. Thank you so much. And Councillor Minhas, I think.
I move 3.2 Administration Policy 124 Bylaw Policy Review Committee. Council approved the policy 124A being as amended to the bylaws and policy review policy. This is maybe Arlene can help it, but it's already just kind of a wash.
All right, so as in your package, the highlighted items are the amended items, and the motion today is to approve the policy 124 as amended. Comments or questions? Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. No, just a comment. Actually, I wanted to thank administration and our bylaw and policy review committee for putting this together. It's nice to know that inside our playbook, it is completely scripted for all future administration and council, that when we create our bylaws and policies, that we're committing to an inclusive environment, diversity and equity. So having those definitions in there and having that writing just makes me more proud to be a part of this council, this city team that is impacting future generations and making it good for all. So thank you so much for all the hard work.
Great. Any further comments or questions on the amended policy? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to item 8.4, the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee meeting. Sorry?
To update.
Oh, I apologize. Go ahead, Councillor Minhas, with highlights and updates from your committee meeting.
Yeah, this assessment and taxation associates, they're finalizing 2021 assessments. Payments are being recalculated, and the letters will be mailed out by mid-January. And the finance administration is busy doing 2020 year-end and beginning of the new year fiscal year. Emergio standardized performance review will be rolled out this month. Procurement to the date, 5 of the city 2021 capital projects are on the market. And GIS, ITS equipment and software upgrade are occurring in the council chamber. And communication and marketing, the 21 general election website has now been launched along with the Did You Know segment focusing on the traffic operation. That's my update. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Minhas. All right, moving next to item 8.4, the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee meeting held Tuesday, January 5th. Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move the council adopt the minutes of the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee meeting held Tuesday, January 5th, 2021 as presented.
Great. Councillor Thiessen, don't shake your head like that. I'll call that motion. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you so much. Moving on, Councillor Bressie, item 8.4.1, the bylaw C.1422A, the amendment to the boards and committees bylaw.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that council give first reading to bylaw C.1422A, being an amendment to the boards and committee bylaw.
All right, no debate on first reading, so all those in favor? That too is unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Mayor Clayton. Sorry. I would move the council give second reading to bylaw C.1422A. And just to speak to this, this is an amendment to our boards and committees bylaw, and specifically a change to our Economic Development Advisory Committee. What this change would do is it would give the Chamber of Commerce a seat at the table where they'd appoint a member that would have a permanent seat on this committee, just to make sure that they've always got a good connection to the advice we're receiving. So I'd encourage council to pass this bylaw tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Bressie. Any comments or questions on this? Seeing, oh, sorry, Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. A little bit redundant, but I just want to thank administration for the work on this as being chair of the Economic Development Committee. I know Councillor Thiessen and I both spoke about this, and it was unanimously approved at the board, or the, I guess, subcommittee and the board of the Economic Development Committee. So I appreciate this change and the administration putting it together for us.
have a question for administration. Maybe Ms. Karbaczewski. In this amendment, what is tell me hypothetically, if the chamber they got to a point where they weren't interested or possibly didn't have a representative that was suitable, what are the opportunities for that? How would that seat be filled, or could it sit empty, or what does that look like? You're muted, sorry, Ms. Karbaczewski. There we go.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. The position would remain vacant until such a time council had determined a suitable candidate was found or available for appointment. Great.
And that being said, if I am correct, the position is for a one-year term, is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Again, it would be at council's discretion to fill the term. The basic term requirements under the bylaw as a whole would allow a term of either a 1, 2, or a 3-year.
All right. I just wonder if council has any thought in this, and I guess here's my thought. If it's a little bit leading, if you're to, I don't want to handpick certain candidates from the chamber that we want 3 years and some we want 2 years, and I wonder if there's any interest in always making this seat a one-year position. And is Ms. Karbaczewski, from a technical perspective, is that a concern?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. It's not a concern. It would just be a simple matter of amending the terms of reference within the bylaw, which is an amendment to the bylaw in and of itself, to include language within this committee, establishing that this particular appointment is for a one-year term.
Good, thank you. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would just like to observe that typically when we make our appointments, whenever that's done, is usually close to the end of the year. At that time, we determine what's most appropriate as far as the length of term for each of the appointments. And because our appointment is likely going to be at the recommendation of the chamber, then I think that it should be up to them to make a request to council in terms of the length of the term, based on what they know about the candidate that they're putting forward. And if they don't have a recommendation, then we're certainly free to make that decision at the time. I'd hate to tie their hands by saying now that they can only ever put a single person in for a single year.
I think that's true. Yeah, Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. No, I'm just going to echo Councillor Blackburn's sentiments. We have one of the largest chambers in the entire country, and we have lots of very capable, economically driven and minded people, business owners that are part of it. And I have full faith in the chamber putting forward the best representative, because as Grande Prairie grows economically, the chamber grows economically, and it's good for everybody. So I think all we need to do is put in a request for them to put someone forward. If that person serves us for 2 years on this committee, or 3 years or longer, maybe longer is not what I want, but up to 3 years on this committee, then, if they're a good person, if they're, we could have like good captains all together on one team, like steering the economic ship in Grande Prairie to the brightest future. So I don't want to limit the chamber either. So yeah, I agree with Councillor Blackburn. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Councillor Thiessen. Seeing no further comments or questions. Sorry, Councillor Friesen, did you have a comment? I thought I saw your hand raised. My apologies. All right, I'll call that motion. All those in favor? That's second reading. Thank you. And Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that council have third reading of bylaw C-1422A at this meeting.
Seeing no comments or questions, all those in favor? That too is unanimous. Thank you so much. And Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move the council give reading to bylaw C-1422A, being an amendment to the boards and committees bylaw.
Great. Seeing nobody move too quick, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of third reading? And that is unanimous. Great. Thank you so much. Councillor Bressie, did you have any highlights or any other items from your committee meeting?
Well, Councillor Clayton, I've actually got a whole swack load of motions that I still am hoping to read out today.
Perfect.
You'll allow me. And the next one is I would move that council give first readings bylaw C-1078G, being an amendment to the use of public lands bylaw.
Great. No debate on first reading, so all those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Bressie.
Great. I would move the council give second reading to bylaw C-1078G. And just to speak to this, this is a bylaw that came to us through our review of bylaws process. There's a lot of in here that is just tidying up the bylaw, doing good housekeeping, making it more in line with provincial legislation and case law. There also, however, are some changes to making it easier to enforce things like camping on public land. And I just want to acknowledge that strengthening enforcement mechanisms for that is something that's uncomfortable for me. I think that it's like there are people that end up camping on public land because there's some that do it because they just choose to do that and they choose not to undertake other options available to them. But there also are people that are in very hard circumstances that choose to do that, and there aren't good options for them. And so this is an uncomfortable bylaw for me to move. That being said, I know that there's a lot of discretion in how it's enforced, and I really do have confidence in our administration to respond with compassion, with wisdom, and to use the mechanisms we're creating for them in appropriate ways. And so I do hope that council will support these bylaw amendments, even if they aren't the most comfortable ones to be discussing and moving.
All right, so that was a motion for second reading. Any comments or questions on the motion? I see Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I had similar kind of thoughts as Councillor Bressie on it, but mine were more related to the side yards, flanking side yards. I know just with my building when we have separate sidewalks, a lot of homeowners do not consider this their land and do not want to look after it, maintain it. That's not fortunate, but I'm just concerned that administration is going to have a fair amount of calls on this stuff if it's something that they can actually put people into penalties on. So this is something we'll have to monitor. It's more of a comment. I have concerns over that as well, and just hope it doesn't become a bit of a nightmare for bylaw enforcement and services on that.
Thank you, Councillor Plott. Any further comments or questions on second reading? All right, seeing no one, I'll call the motion. All those in favor at second reading? That is unanimous. And Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that council have third reading of bylaw C-1078G at this meeting.
Great, so the motion is to have third reading here tonight. So all those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And Councillor Bressie.
Thank you. I would move that council give third reading to bylaw C-1078G, being an amendment to the use of public lands bylaw.
This is the third reading motion. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you so much. And now, Councillor Bressie, if you had any other highlights from your meeting, that would be great.
Well, my apologies, Mayor Clayton, but if I may, I've got one more bylaw and one policy to move yet. And
my apologies. All right, Councillor Bressie for bylaw C-504C.
Believe me, it's more numbers than I want to read out myself. I would move, but whatever it takes to serve the people. I would move the council give first reading to bylaw C-504C, being the repeal of the boulevard bylaw.
Okay, no debate on first reading rather. So all those in favor? That is unanimous. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. I would move the council give second reading to bylaw C-504C, and just to speak to this and also the policy I'll be moving in a minute or two, is this is truly just a pure housekeeping thing that we're doing right now. There's some language that needs to be changed just to reflect current city practices and what departments oversee things and the things we've named our committee. So nothing really substantive happening here, just making our bylaw and policies a little bit neater and more modern given our current operating environment.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Bressie. So a second reading, all those in favor? Councillor Bressie.
Thank you. I would move the council have third reading of bylaw C-504C at this meeting.
All right, the motion to have third reading, all those in favor? Great, that is unanimous. And Councillor Bressie.
I would move the council give third reading to bylaw C-504C, being the repeal of the Boulevard bylaw.
All right, and third reading, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Great, thank you. That is unanimous. And one more, Councillor Bressie, policy 605.
Great. I would move that council approve policy 605, being the boulevard use permitting policy.
Great. No debate on first reading. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you. And then just an update from committee is we already voted on a lot of the business coming out of committee, but two updates worth giving council are, one, we heard from our director that construction on the combined heat power unit at Eastlink Centre has begun. So I'm really excited for that. That's an example of how we're gonna do good for the environment while also saving taxpayer money, starting in the medium term. And long term, we're gonna save a lot of money. So it's kind of a cool project, and it's one that I'm very proud that our council got to be part of getting off the ground. So it's exciting that construction has started. The other thing I'll give an update on is, speaking of looking to give taxpayers better value for the money, we got a report on ARTI, which is the autonomous snow removal robot by winter and grass cutting robot by summer. And last season for snow removal, it was intentionally put on some of the paths that are the most challenging to clear in the city, in terms of lots of people, lots of places where the path's narrow, lots of hills, and it had some challenges, but absolutely zero safety challenges. So that was a good thing. It showed that it can do very safe operation, but there was a little bit more human intervention than was liked for that part of the city, which wasn't completely unexpected. So right now it's being used for snow removal on the community knowledge campus, where there's less objects around and it's just a flatter area. And hopefully it does a good job there. It was also used over the summer. It was used in a variety of environments, and there was quite a bit of success found there. And this summer, it's going to be spending a lot of time on sports fields. And something interesting about that is, usually we mow sports fields at 3 inches, just because the mowers we use all across the city are 3 inches. And to bring them down to 2 inches where there's no irrigation creates brown grass. And it's just too much time, too much effort to be constantly bringing the deck up and down. So we haven't been doing that. However, ARTI we can set at 2 inches. So our robot's going to be mowing sports fields at 2 inches. And instead of the previous 2 weeks, they're going to get mowed every week. And so we'll be doing a cost analysis over the summer, but it looks like it's going to be cheaper in the long run to operate, and we're going to deliver a higher level of service. So I think that's really exciting, and I'm glad that our administration is exploring so many options to do more with less taxpayer dollars. And that's all I have to report from that committee.
Great, thank you, Councillor Bressie. No further comments or questions. We will move along. Under correspondence, item 9.1, Alberta Health Services. I think that Director Manuel is going to take this one.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I certainly can. As Council saw in your packages, we received a rather generic response back from Alberta Health Services that I think Councillor Thiessen summarized a little bit earlier. One of the things that Alberta Health Services explained in person to me in communications was that given their provincial scope and the fact that they're servicing several hundred municipalities, they said it was going to be difficult for them to provide Grande Prairie specific information to us at the level that we requested. That being said, certainly we have been able to obtain some local information through some of their available sources. One of the questions that was on the correspondence we had requested was what our local ICU capacity was. And while I can't speak to scaled up capacity and the ability for Alberta Health Services to bring additional units online, our regular ICU capacity for the North Zone, which primarily consists of the Grande Prairie Regional Hospital and the Fort McMurray Medical Center, is a total of 12 beds, with the City of Grande Prairie consisting of 9 of those beds on a regular year. And so that would include both the cardiac and general intensive care unit beds. And it's my understanding that a few others could be additionally repurposed from the surgical suites if necessary. That being said, additionally, as of Friday, City of Grande Prairie was sitting at 151 active COVID cases in the county, with 44 for a combined total of 195. One of the big factors kind of driving things at the Alberta Health Services locally here is not necessarily just the city, but the surrounding catchment area. So our North Zone consists of just over around 489,000 residents that are served by these healthcare centers. And COVID cases are actually rather extensive in some of the counties and MDs surrounding us. The MD of Greenview is at 74 cases. Big Lakes, which is High Prairie, has 148. Northern Sunrise County is 73, and the MD of Peace is at 100. So an additional 395 cases there. One of the things that was interesting is presently the provincial positivity rate on testing as of Friday was, of the testing results conducted across the province, the average was a positive rate of 8.24% of tests. In the North Zone, unfortunately, we're a bit higher. We're sitting at 14.74% positivity rate. So although those don't answer all the questions that council was seeking, it provides a little bit of context as to where we are today. And I'll be able to provide, a better and hopefully more current update when the time comes in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Director Manuel. Any comments or questions? Councillor Plot.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton, and thanks for that update, Director Manuel. Appreciate that we get something as form of a director, or as far as an update. Just want to point out this letter is from December 14th, and we started this conversation much before that with letter writing, asking, and I just have to say for the record, my general lack and disappointment of transparency and consistent information from AHS. I want to remind most people that daily, most of us are checking the Alberta Health Services app that shows how many ICUs and how many hospitalizations are happening in the province. So if they know the number of ICU units that are being active, why can't they tell us where they're from? They must know the total of why we have 123 or whatever it is today. So I'm just incredibly disappointed that we can't get this information for our local region. We're trying to make decisions. We're constantly getting bombarded with questions and information about what's going on in our local community. We have no idea. This is not a knock on doctors and nurses and people within the system. This is a knock on the overall transparency and communications coming out of AHS. It's very central around scaring people, in my opinion, and we're not giving the information. I'm just incredibly disappointed that yet again AHS has dodged being able to come and speak to our community about what's truly happening in it. So I guess we receive this information and we keep pushing, but it's I hope somebody please from AHS, just come and speak to us and tell us what is going on. Give us some ideas and updates that are accurate and good information so our community can understand what is going on rather than just what they read on CBC News. That's just more of a comment and a frustration level that just continues to build with Alberta Health Services, a lack of consistency and transparency in our community.
Sorry, Director Miller, did you have something on that? Sorry, Director Manuel, I did it again, my apologies.
Nope, nothing to add additional to that. Certainly, administration continues dialogue with Alberta Health Services, and we will continue to pursue that.
Great, thank you. Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. In fact, I'm going to just say it. I'm in full agreement with Councillor Palat, and as a form of protest, I'm not even going to vote this in for information when that motion gets made, because there is a lack of information here. So I'm just going to vote no, even when we receive it for information. And this is what bothers me, and Councillor Palat pointed to a lot of it, but we get a generic email response with 3 direct links. One link is the Alberta Health Services Northzone COVID ICU data is available here. It goes to link not found, page not found. It goes to the Alberta's website, but the page isn't there. And same thing when we start talking about provincial opioid surveillance reports are available here. When I click on that, I get to the Alberta's website, but it says page not found. I don't know, as a professional standpoint, why you would include links that are broken to somebody asking for information. You say, well, here's your information, but you didn't even do the work to double check it and see if the link actually went to where it was supposed to go. The other thing that actually really, really bothers me is when we start talking about the regional context of Grande Prairie. So it's nice. I thank you, Director Manuel. We have known for a long time that we only have 12 ICU beds. As Councillor Palat said, we know there's 129, I think was the last time I checked the COVID count. I'm just flying off the top of my throat here. That's 129 across the province. They should know. And in order to protect the privacy of patients, they're saying they can't release certain data, but it doesn't stop them from a COVID positive person who leaves his home and is contact traced and followed up with the RCMP afterwards. Where's that person's privacy? Why aren't we protecting that person's privacy? So we can do it for one thing and not for another. That actually really bothers me. And the lack of FaceTime too. These are easy to answer questions that we're not getting answers to, or even representation. We're not getting representation on this. We're supposed to be making decisions based off of this and trying to guide our population to make the best decisions in their lives too. And what we have is a lack of information. So when this motion comes forward to accept this letter for information, I'm a solid no, because there is nothing in here that we don't already know. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thiessen. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Bressie.
Thank you. I think the challenge for me with this and all of COVID response is the incoherent role of municipalities of the province is communicating. In terms of when we asked this information, that was when there was no provincial mask mandate, and the messaging from the province was municipalities should make decisions for their region that work best for their region. And when we were responsible for making a major health decision, this was completely unacceptable. We can't make a health decision without health information. However, now the province has a mask mandate of its own, and it's taken the power to make that decision away from municipalities. And if that's going to be its consistent approach, that it's saying we're going to make health decisions, well, then I think that it should be making more information available to the public, but it doesn't concern me as much as a councillor. It concerns me as a citizen. It doesn't concern me so much as a councillor if we're not having to make health decisions. And so for me, what I'm trying to understand is, what is this government's current view of our role in making decisions for public health going forward? And if it expects us to have a role, it needs to do better than this. If it doesn't expect us to have a role, then this might be acceptable, but should come out and say, all right, we're fulfilling our responsibility and we're doing what we should have done all along. And that was step up and provide the leadership that we should provide. And so for me, it's not so much this response necessarily, it's the incoherent message we're getting from the province that bothers me, and I think makes our job way more difficult than it should be.
Thanks, Councillor Bressie. If I can chime in here, because I see no one else moving. I support Councillor Palat and Thiessen's message in regards to the fact that this information provided is very generic It's, you know, almost form letter-ish. It's not really what we as a council had requested and are looking for. For me, this is more, and to Councillor Bressy's comment, this is not this should be a non-political issue. This truly is an AHS conversation, in my opinion. I don't want to not support receiving this information because it is information. And so, you know, we can make a motion, receive it for information, but what I'd like to see is, you know, if somebody was willing to make a formal motion to have AHS appear at council. It's what we asked for from the beginning, and it's what we're looking for. We're looking for exact 3 times, as Councillor Thiessen just indicated. And so I think that this information is information, albeit not directly related to our region and our city as we asked for. It's still the information they provided at this time. I think administration from AHS could provide better information that's more specific to our region. And although we're not making decisions currently on, as Councillor Bressy mentioned, on our region in regards to the, you know, safeguarding, I still think that as councillors, it's important for us to have information that provides comfort and information in our community. And we don't have relevant local information and statistics. And without that, we're just providing what everybody else sees for across the province. So if we want to have relevant local statistics and information, we need AHS at the table locally. So there's no motions on the floor currently, but I would, you know, it'd be, in my opinion, it would be nice to have a formal motion to have AHS come to council. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I 100% agree with what you just said. And everything happens at once, right? I agree. I got a little upset here last time we approached HS, and we didn't really get any answers there either. So I would once again like to make a motion to have administration try and get Alberta Health Services to come and answer some questions to the City Council. And if we need to, we can get some questions ahead of schedule so they can answer them so they're not put on the spot.
All right, Ms. Karwaszewski, are you good with that motion as it stands?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I have the motion recorded as, excuse me, Councillor O'Toole has moved Council Direct Administration invite Alberta Health Services to attend a future council meeting.
Can I also add to ask questions regarding the COVID state in the province of Alberta, most certainly around the Grande Prairie area?
Yeah, Councillor O'Toole, if I may, I kind of think it should be specific to our Grande Prairie region. They have done, you know, they have provided us Alberta-wide information. Okay. And I think your intent, I'm not trying to lead you down a path, but I think your intent is to get more detailed information for, you know, local. What's happening with the Grande Prairie.
Yes, so you can scratch the Alberta part out, just the local Grande Prairie municipality.
Councillor Bressy, I see you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the intent of this motion in terms of keeping this conversation going, but I don't think I support it as is, just because our administration's already talking to AHS, and they've already, it's our city administration's already talked to provincial civil service, and they've gotten nowhere, and I see no reason to think why they get anywhere else. So they're already kind of beating their head against that brick wall. I don't really know why we need to give them the direction to keep on beating your head against that brick wall. I think if we find this unacceptable, we should be raising this to the political level. And we as politicians should be reaching out to the politicians responsible, not asking our administration to keep on making requests to civil service.
Councillor Minhas. Oh, sorry, there you go.
I like it one way, this motion, but I don't like it because they don't really care. If we're going to do approach, we should do approach with our MLA. Around here, they can do something. But by the time they're gonna come back here, I think the vaccine coming out. I don't know, we are wasting the time for administration to talking to them. They already been talking to them. So I don't know like this motion will do any good to us. That's my feeling.
Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I don't mind asking again. I think that taking a move to put this to the political level and actually have some conversation with political counterparts would be appropriate. But at the same time, I think we need to keep asking. And the other point that I need to make is that I think that it would also send a very strong message if AHS was told that a motion to accept their letter for information was defeated. It's a very rare thing to have happen, but it does get the point across that no, we really didn't get any information with the response that you sent us, and please try again.
Thank you, Councillor. I like your comments, and I wonder if maybe because there are a couple of people have indicated some interest in including some political counterparts in the discussion. Maybe the intent, rather than just having AHS come present, is, you know, in addition, is that a letter be written to AHS to come to a future council meeting, present, and then possibly that letter be CC'd to the appropriate MLA and ministers. And so not only then is it an AHS request, it becomes a heads up for the elected officials as well. Councillor Thiessen. Oh, actually, I see Director Burke, if that's okay. Councillor Thiessen.
And I would thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would add that we are having some discussions about advocacy and our priorities here in the next few weeks, so that that there is that part of the conversation would still be active and an opportunity for council to act on that here, in line with what all of the priorities are for council, talking with the political level.
Great, thank you. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. For the record, you're a lot more fun than Mayor Given. There you go. Anyways, no, I just want to chime in. I want to say I just 100% agree with Councillor Blackburn in regards to getting Alberta Health Services front and center to answer questions is a good thing. And yeah, if everybody wants to jump on board and you know, if there's a request to receive this letter for information and we defeat it and then we follow it up with a letter, I'm all game for that. As far as approving this motion, though, I'm kind of like, I'm with Councillor Minhas, where if we put a nebulous date on it, we're going to get a nebulous response. We're not going to get things in the time that we want. So we need to be direct, and we need to say, we need this right now. Part of our letter could be, hey, we're looking at our mask bylaws about to expire on January 31st. That's a good time for you to come in and explain like the R rate data on infections and stuff like that to council, so we have a better understanding of this virus and how it impacts people on a contagious level. But I don't want to put a nebulous date on it. So just for that simple reason, like I don't think it should be longer than a month. And honestly, I think it should be before a mask mandate comes up. So if I
to amend the motion then?
Yeah, I was going to ask if I could make an amendment. I would amend to have Alberta Health Services come speak with council prior to January 31st of 2021.
All right. Ms. Karvashewski, are you clear on that?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm typing away here, but can I ask Councillor Thiessen to confirm the date?
Yeah, prior to January 31st. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. I saw Councillor Plott with a comment or a question on the motion.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I appreciate the conversation here in general, and I like the amendment that Councillor Thiessen just made. I will be supporting it. I won't be supporting the receive information. I think Councillor Blackburn made a solid point that if we put that in our letter saying this did not pass, that's great. But having said this again, you guys, like, That's up to 3 weeks for them to get back during a pandemic when they're the health services authority. So I think if they can't get back to us within a 2 to 3 week fashion, when there's a pandemic, when they have all the cards to show us, then it's a little disheartening. And I think by giving them a 3 week heads up, we've given them time. I appreciate the letter's not going to go tomorrow, but they're going to have a minimum of 2 weeks to get back to us with some sort of response. So appreciate the amendment. I'll be supporting it, won't be supporting to receive for information.
Thank you, Councillor Platt. I will just add that so that people watching don't feel that it's only our region that's sort of being shunned out of information. It seems to be a trend that's happening across the province. So I will be supporting the motion, and if I see no further comments or questions, or the amendment rather, I see no further comments or questions to the amendment, I will call that now. All those in favor? That is unanimous. And so, Ms. Karbaschewski, just maybe for reference, if you could read the amended motion.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So the amended motion is Council, Direct Administration, invite Alberta Health Services to attend a future Council meeting to ask questions regarding the current COVID situation within the region of Grande Prairie prior to January 31st, 2021.
Great. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I have one minor amendment to suggest, and that is to change the word invite to request, because an invitation implies that they could either take it or leave it. And if we simply request that they come, I think it just makes a slightly stronger statement.
Ms. Karbaschewski, are you okay with that as a friendly amendment, or do you need an amendment to that motion?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. It's actually a council that chooses to allow the friendly amendment.
Is council okay with that friendly amendment?
Yeah.
I believe that would have to come from the mover.
From the mover. Sorry, Councillor O'Toole, are you okay with that friendly? Perfect. Thank you so much. So with that motion as is, I will call, I see no comments or questions. I will call the motion. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Clyde.
All right, getting back to the agenda here.
Mayor Clayton, Councillor Bressie.
Yep, Councillor Bressie.
Sorry, usually I'd consider that this takes care of with that motion, but in light of something that Councillor Blackburn said, I would move that we receive this letter for information, and since I can't speak against my own motion, I'll just be silent on it.
Perfect. Any comments or questions on that motion? All those in favor? I see no one in favor, and sorry, Councillor Friesen.
I'd like to actually speak.
My apologies. Yep, go for it.
Clayton, thank you. I actually will be voting in favor of this motion. I know it's incredibly frustrating. I feel that as well. I commented strongly on that, and back in September when we were discussing what to do regarding masks, for example, and it is incredibly frustrating. But I also have been inside the healthcare system, and never during a pandemic though. And what I know about the pressures that our hospital faces as a small regional hospital is that the ups and downs of small numbers drastically changes staffing, it drastically changes approaches to care, it drastically changes so much. And when we make the request to AHS for information, and they give us what we've given and what they have given us, I don't think that that's unfair or unreasonable. It is information that, as I follow the links on there and get to the pages that I open on my computer, I see that as of today, or the end of day yesterday, we have 7 people in ICU in the North Zone, which we know is actually the majority of our available ICU beds. It's over half, and I don't think that that's unreasonable for us to be given those links as up-to-date information. And when it's in a letter format like this, I actually appreciate that we are sent the information that is up to date via link, because we'd be having the same fuss if we got information that was accurate as of December 15th. We'd be upset about that. So I will be voting in favor of this motion. I do think it's fair that someone from AHS, the request has been made and repeatedly made that someone from AHS come and have discussion with us. And I think that is, it's unfortunate that they haven't been able to do so or haven't seen their way to do so yet. And while I very much feel for them, you know, not only is it a pandemic and managing and dealing with the health care of people who are affected, but it's also dealing with the prevention of those who are not yet affected. It's also dealing with a vaccine rollout that is of a scope and scale that is greater than anything we have seen in our lifetime, for sure. And so for those reasons, I will be voting in favor of accepting this for information, although I am glad that we have made the request one more time for AHS to come and speak with us in public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Friesen. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you. I do appreciate, Councillor Friesen, your insights in this. I just think that at this point, it should be AHS that comes to their own defense in this matter, because they haven't really explained themselves in terms of why they responded the way they have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton, and I too appreciate your background and experience in this realm and your insights, Councillor Friesen. I still can't support this as an information piece. Maybe I'm getting nitpicky, but it wasn't even addressed to Mayor or anybody with the City of Grande Prairie. It was dated at the top, but I don't know. I've written a few letters in my day. Normally, I address the person or the people I'm talking to first. The other thing that gets me is on that ICU stat. That was the middle link, and that does go up. That's the common Alberta link that I always go to. And so that one did work on the letter that they sent. But of the North Zone, that's 7 ICU. That's not the Grande Prairie or even the regional context. That's the entirety of the North Zone. And as Director Manuel said, that's almost 500,000 people in the entirety of the North Zone as far as population goes. We have 7 people in the ICU. Of the total 200 Grande Prairie and County of Grande Prairie regional contexts, or I guess more specifically 195, currently in the North Zone, there's 1,678 active cases. So Grande Prairie in the county, we're about 20% of the population, and we have currently about an eighth of a percent. So I don't know the math, but 1/8 of the entirety of all the COVID stuff. So I do think that there's a lack of information that has been provided, even access to certain information due to broken links. And I don't think we should accept this half-assed letter that was sent to council. So there's no information here that I can find acceptable to the questions that we asked.
Thank you, Councillor Thiessen. I will just add a little bit here. I too, Councillor Friesen, appreciate your insight in this and your comments. I guess the reason that I will support this motion is that I compare it to an example possibly within our own organization. If we were to request something from our own administration and the report came back and wasn't specific to what we were looking for, and you know, on numerous occasions we have had through email or other conversations been pretty clear that we're looking for a specific update to our region. And to me, this information and this reply doesn't address that. So although it is some information, it's not really what we've been asking for, and that's why personally I wouldn't support receiving it. So I will support the motion. I will give the mover, Councillor Bresty, an opportunity to close. Yeah, thank you.
I'm okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I will call the motion. All those in favor of receiving this piece of correspondence for information? I see Councillor Friesen, and all opposed? I see the remainder. Councillor O'Toole, Councillor Thiessen, Blackburn, Minhas, Plott, Bressie, and Mayor Clayton. That is defeated. Seeing no further business under this item, I will move on to 9.2, the Community Energy Association. And I'm not sure exactly who is bringing this forward. There we go, Director Glavin, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. We received this correspondence from the Community Energy Association. This is a request that we top up our initial contribution of $1,000 to $5,000. Essentially, this project is to create an EV charging strategy that would create linkages with the United States, Saskatchewan, British Columbia, and the rest of Alberta. Through discussions with the Energy and Environment Department here at the city, they are in favor of this, and if council were in support, they would fund it out of their existing operating budget with no further budgetary impacts.
Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. Just a question for Director Glavin, and I didn't give him a heads up about this, so totally understandable if the answers aren't available right now, but am I understanding correct that this is a charity, not a private company that's doing consulting work?
Yeah, Director Glavin.
That is an answer that I don't have, Councillor Bressie.
And then my other question, again, my apologies for not giving a heads up on this, is I noticed in the MOU they circulated, there was an advisory committee mentioned that will oversee this work. Do we know who is on that advisory committee? What organizations have a seat at that table?
Director Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I believe it is the municipalities that are funders that are do have seats on that advisory. I'm reasonably sure that we have a say on that currently with our initial contribution. But if council would prefer, we could put a report on the next Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee to bring back some additional information on this.
Perfect. I see Councillor Bressie and then Councillor Blackburn.
Yeah, I just moved that we direct administration to bring a verbal report back to the next appropriate standing committee on this. I think it's a $4,000 line item. I don't think I want to spend significant administration time writing a report and all of that. I don't want to add weeks onto the time asking for a written report, but I would love to just get a little bit more information. So I think a verbal report at the next committee meeting would be appropriate.
Great. And Councillor Blackburn?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would support Councillor Bressie's motion. The thought that occurs to me is that if any organization within our city came to us and asked for $5,000 for a project, we would want to know what the total cost of the project would look like, whether or not the funding that they're getting from the 7 or the 6 organizations that have volunteered $5,000, whether that's adequate, whether there's going to be more need for more money from other sources, whether or not they've got a sense of the ability to be successful with the funding that they've been able to raise. It just seems to me like it's, at this point, a shot in the dark. And so I would appreciate hearing something further from administration in terms of what they've been able to find out from the organization.
Great, thank you. Councillor O'Toole.
Yes, when we first heard about this and was asked, I think a lot of those questions were asked and we did get some answers. I just don't remember exactly locations and the amounts and who was going to fulfill the need if more money was required. Because I did ask that question, is $5,000 enough? And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing some more information come forward. Thank you.
Director Glavin, did you have any additional context that you wanted to add?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. No, I'd suggest this be referred to committee and we'll address it more fulsomely in that venue.
Perfect. Thank you. Any further comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, I call the motion. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you so much. All right, next on the agenda is delegation business. As we had a presentation from Ms. Gurmscheid tonight from the Grande Prairie Sport Connection. Was there any business coming forward? I have Councillor Thiessen and then Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I think we're going to do the same thing, but I would just move that we receive the presentation by Ms. Gurmscheid and the GP Sports Connection for information.
All right, comments or question on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is passed unanimously. All right, we are good on that item then. I will move to, there's no notice of motion, we're not having a recess, public hearing, delegation business we already dealt with. And I apologize, forgot to ask at the beginning when I was dealing with my technical difficulties. So I'm gonna go around the room, and if you have no council member reports, we'll move on, and then we will move to our in-camera items. So Councillor O'Toole, I'll start with you. Did you have any council member reports?
Nothing to report this week, thank you.
I guess I'll ask Ms. Karbashewski, is it appropriate to do roundtable at this time as well? Because I don't think we're coming out of the in-camera.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. This section of the agenda is used for both reports and roundtable. If you choose, you can combine them.
I'll do a loop around just so they don't get confusing, but just to give council the head up. So in regards to council member reports for committees, Councillor Thiessen.
Nothing to report, Mayor Clayton. And if I could, I'll just throw in my roundtable here because I have to go to the bathroom. My apologies for being so upfront with that. Yeah, I just wanted to encourage people to get out and take advantage of this incredible weather. I'm fairly certain if he's not locked down, he's probably out there playing winter disc golf somewhere, as Councillor Bressy would be doing. I know I've been utilizing the skating rinks and the oval. Just a reminder to any citizen in Grande Prairie that if you are watching this, we prefer, especially at the pond in Muskosipi Park, they use the Perfect Mind site to book your skate time so that we can keep that social distancing perfect the way we need it, so to keep people healthy. So, but I just want to remind people to keep active, to go out. We have beautiful trails that are plowed all the time. It's really good for your mental health. It's really good for your physical health, and so good for your soul. So yeah, get out, enjoy the outdoors. And if you want, call Councillor Bressy and ask him for a game of disc golf. I guarantee you he'll go with you if he's got the time. And I just want to throw a shout out to you, Mayor Clayton. Great job on your first council meeting. You know, it's probably a bit nerve-wracking, but I thought you did great.
Thank you, Councillor Thiessen. I will move next to Councillor Friesen. Any standing committees, any council member reports or anything to add on roundtable?
No, it's been quiet, thank you.
Perfect. Councillor next on my screen is Councillor Blackburn.
I have nothing to report, thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Bressy.
Thank you. I've got no reports. I do have roundtable though when we get that.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, I was going to say it, but I have indeed been playing a lot of winter disc golf, and we got about one more snowstorm before there's too much. So if anybody wants to play, happy to take you. The two other things I'll report is we had an opioid response task force meeting today, and as council will recall, we've done a significant pivot with it, just trying to involve more outside organizations. And we had our Catholic school board there, our public school board there, the construction association there, GPRC there, the suicide prevention resource center there. We had our Crown prosecutor who used to be involved was able to come back to the table today, and it was really great to see so many different organizations joining the table to figure out how can we do a better job of reducing opioid misuse and overdoses in our community. So that was an exciting day, and thank you to the counselors that helped me do some recruiting. And if you know other organizations or people who should be around that table, by all means, we're not done recruiting yet, so let me know. The other thing I'll just report is I had an interesting experience. It wasn't actually as a counselor. This was actually with my company. I got hired to remove 2 encampments that were on private land, and it was pretty eye-opening to me. I know that that's something our park staff do all the time, but it was pretty eye-opening to fill a full 7-yard container and most of a pickup truck with what looked like just 2 little tents and a few things around them, and proved to be a lot more. And it was an incredible amount of work. It was at times a little bit nerve-wracking work as we did it very safely, but as you're moving things and wondering when you're going to find the next needle. And it's work that I'm glad that I did kind of once, and it probably won't be a regular part of my working world. So I wanted to give a special shout out and thank you to our Parks Department, our enforcement services who are doing that important work on public land very regularly. And so yeah, I didn't realize what a big a task it is that they're doing on the regular. So I wanted to acknowledge that and just share with council how eye-opening that was.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Bressy. I will move next to Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. No committee reports and nothing new to really report. But activities being quite slow other than being outside lots with the family. So, and a new puppy. So that's what all I have to report.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Minhas, anything for committee business or roundtable?
Oh, I don't have much to say, but the roundtable I could say it's a nice weather. At least one thing is positive when this Corona-19 or Cobra 20, whatever we can call. And it's nice to play with the grandsons and go out and walk around and go to the skate like Chris said. So I enjoyed this weather and the holiday was good. So what else you can do? Thank you.
Great, thank you. I will come back to Councillor O'Toole. I sort of left you out of the roundtable. If you had anything to add, now would be appropriate. If not, I'll just, nope, okay. Oh, there we go. Did you have anything for roundtable, Councillor O'Toole?
No, I've been just following the process of staying at home and spending time with my wife, and believe it or not, we're still talking to each other, so that's good. She's got me convinced that I need to do dishes off, so I've been doing the dishes and cooking. So I really don't know what her role in the house is right now, but no, we've spent a lot of time together and it's all good.
That means you're learning something.
Whatever.
Great. Thank you.
Humbug.
I have nothing to add under committee business other than the Grande Prairie Regional Tourism Association has received the resignation of their executive director, Terry Dow, and we're currently in the process of working with that and what will come next. And as well, they've been working hard on their marketing plan for, getting people to be COVID friendly, but finding activities, whether it's through the ski hill that's open or encouraging people, as mentioned, to sign up for your skating, to get to the community ranks and sort of through a tourism piece, letting people know what facilities are still open, whether it be retail, so retail or local amenities within the region. So, and then in regards to roundtable, I have nothing to add other than it's great to see everyone's faces again and be back as we, kick off 2021. I thank you all for your patience tonight as I get through my first council meeting. And if I see no one else waving, I will ask that we move to our in-camera session. But if we could just have a 15-minute recess before we start that in-camera session, that would be appreciated. If there's nothing further, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Councillor Blackburn, you have something? Oh.
We need a motion to move in camera.
My apologies. Councillor Blackburn.
I would move that we move in camera.
Great. Thank you so much. All in favor? For those I see on the screen, I have Bressy, Minhas, Blackburn, Plott, Thiessen, and myself. Thank you. The motion is carried. And we will go in camera. Thank you.
So we'll be back in 15?
Yeah, we'll be back in 15. Thank you.
Using the different Zoom or this same?
Ms. Karbaszewski, I don't recall. Are we using a different Zoom for this?
I think that was different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's in your calendars then. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Arlene. We'll see y'all in 15.
Sounds good.